All right, do believe we're live here. Ingram Smith with a quasi instant reaction podcast. Uh, I'm not sure I am live here. Let me just check. Sorry about this. Yeah, we are. Good deal. All right. So, yeah, that was a smooth, solid opening, wasn't it? Ingram, Nolecast. Let's talk about what we saw last night. Florida State beats Duke, moves to 7-0. I will say that I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, and I've been kicked off the internet twice in the last 30 minutes. So fingers crossed this goes well. But yeah, so we didn't have an instant reaction podcast. Honestly, on night games moving forward, it's going to be hard for us to do that just with Bud has national responsibilities, and I have some things that going to be hard for me to do a podcast on for night games. So, first of all, incredible time yesterday. Night games are better everywhere, but this fan base and that building, it's just something different, and was really awesome. You know, a environment that I wasn't sure that you would be able to, an environment that I wasn't sure you were going to be able to create for Duke. You know, better yet, Duke is a legit team with a solid roster and really well coached. But you know, the logo is the logo, and just the general fan has a pretty lagging appreciation for maybe a program's status or where it is or whatever else. So, no, that wasn't the case at all. Last night was incredible at Doak. It was great to be reminded of what that can be, and that was a really special night with a special environment that at times had an impact on the game. You know, that Duke, certainly their second team quarterback guy came in after Leonard was injured or re-injured. It didn't appear to be real familiar with how to handle an environment like that. So let's start with the defense. Or I guess let's start by thanking our sponsors. Congruity. Matt Lewis saw an old friend of mine yesterday. We've known each other about 15 years or so, and he asked me if he could get a little Congruity information as a loyal Nolecast listener, and whether it be people that I used to drink too much with in college or just listeners of the Nolecast in general. Love to introduce you to Matt and his team at Congruity. Fantastic people that we've loved working with, and I've done my best to work with at every stop that I've had professionally. So, all right, let's start with the defense. Defense is, it is a very good defense is a good defense that has appeared very good in the second half of games. So, I chuckle at some of the comments that I see there. Sorry. I do think that you can have some concerns with how this defense plays at times, or there's certain position groups that may not be everything that you think they should be compared with some of the better teams that you've seen wear garnet and gold. But, I don't think anybody really – well, yeah. But on the whole, it was a very solid defense, and they were special last night, and particularly in the second half. The defense gives up 10 points, and Shaheem Brown, I don't want to get over my skis with this, but Shaheem Brown is developing into a plus level player very quickly. And as soon as that guy came onto campus, you started hearing feedbacks from coaches about the type of player he was, and legitimately some guys who've coached ball for a while thought that he could be potentially be a first round pick. And at the time I thought that might be getting over skis a little bit, but Yeah, you can see that type of player starting to come online. Linebackers are very solid. Tatum Bethune is what this program's needed for a couple years. Just the fact that he's a bona fide linebacker who runs around and hits people. Kalen DeLoach has a skill set that is as needed in the modern game as you could have, and you have two really solid linebackers, and you're starting to develop some depth behind them with Lundy being a legit third as well. Defensive line, look, I know if game doesn't end with 2 sacks by Jared Verse, that some people are disappointed. Jared Verse is playing his rear end off. What I was very encouraged is that, man, you're starting to see the flashes from Fabian Lovett that, we all know how good Fabian can be, and it's what happened at the LSU game last year. So just wildly disappointing. But when that guy is right and when that guy's healthy, that is a super, super impactful defensive lineman. Josh Farmer has continued to progress. I really like where you are on the defensive line. You've got a great group there. And again, just because Jared Verse doesn't end the game with 2.5 sacks doesn't mean that you're not getting some of the production out of that group. Defensive backs, Fintrell Cypress really continued to develop and come online. Renardo Green is a solid player that you can wholeheartedly depend on. Jarian Jones is a better player than I ever thought he would be. Michael Johnson points out Fisk. Fisk is a crazy good player, and numerous times just threw his guy off of him. Was a victim of a couple holding calls that weren't called. Many a holding call was called. I'm not really going to make a issue out of the officiating. It's a Flanagan crew. You're going to get a couple interesting calls for that go against both sides. So don't ever really want to get bogged down in officiating unless it's just egregious. But Fisk is a player that I think there's more appreciation in person when you see him play, because you get an appreciation for the motor. You get an appreciation as to what it takes the other team to block him. The quarterback is constantly trying to move out of or constantly having to just course adjust because this dude is just a pain in the rear end throughout the course of a game. So Fisk is a special player, also involved in kickoff return on the one that you take back, and I believe everyone else this week. I think he was incorporated into a couple of special teams packages there, and you just got a special player in there. So special teams, Fitzgerald. I mean, if that's not as a significant turnaround from somebody that you could ever hope to see. Just remarkable. Kid's been perfect throughout the year, and your old Australian punter continues to be very much a solid asset. So special teams have been great, and big hat tip to the young man from Moultrie, Georgia, who went through his toughest stretches you're going to go through as a player last year, and responded well last year, and has responded incredibly well. Incredibly well through 7 games so far. Couldn't ask more for a kid, and couldn't be happier for a kid who put in a lot of work. Also want to thank the legendary team, Chad and Shannon. Couldn't be better people to work with throughout the mortgage process. Shannon is just professional. Legitimately, I've never had a bad word said about him as to the experience. I've had some of my best friends in the world, and Bud and others that have worked with him. Many a Nolecast listener. A guy is who you want on your side when you're going through a process like that. 844 FSU loan, and Chad is as passionate and a supporter passionate supporter of Florida State athletics and Florida State University as anybody that you're ever going to find. I think the question is Deuce, is it produce Deuce spawn? I don't think so. I've talked to Deuce a couple times and have never picked up that that's the pronunciation of his last name. If it is, then we'll do our best to adjust accordingly. No, Deuce's return, if we want to stay with special teams real quickly, just brilliant. You have the Deuce bobbles one. Then you have Rodney Hill, who took it out from the end zone and only got back to the 14, which is a moment of frustration for some, and I certainly understand that. Look, Deuce is, I said a couple of months ago that, like, every time I'm at practice or whatever, and you see Deuce, run out for a play or whatever, I still kind of do a double take because, like, that's what an NFL wide receiver looks like, and he's got that kind of skill set. And Deuce is just wildly fast, and I would be hesitant to. He's wildly fast. He also shut it down about 30 yards out from the goal line. So I would be hesitant, to compare Hakeem Williams running with Deuce in a manner of, say, Carlos Williams in the national championship game, because Deuce knew he was going to score, and Deuce was happy in the moment, and I'm glad that he could be, and it was awesome to see, and it was a wildly meaningful play. So awesome night all around for the special teams, and absent a kickoff return recently, the special teams have been pretty solid this year. I do think I should have talked about this while I was talking about the defense. So I think both things can be true, right? Like, Duke could have lost some steam, could have had a much greater realization as to what the end product of the game was likely going to be when they lose Leonard. But you can also look at what Leonard wasn't killing you by any means. So I think both things can be true. Like, Florida State was playing a high level of defense while Leonard was still in the game. They had some success in the first quarter, got a pick six, whatever. I think a lot of, just in general, people look at the score, associate with the quarterback, and then look at what happened afterwards. I don't know that had Leonard stayed in this game, maybe do you win by 18? Maybe not. Maybe you win by 13 or 14. I don't know. But I also, want to say that, and also will acknowledge that, look, when your quarterback gets knocked out of a game, that it does impact a team. We don't have to act like it doesn't otherwise. So I think we can live in a world to where there's maybe a tad bit of nuance, and both things can be true here. And I'll move on from the Leonard conversation. So, offense. Okay, here's a little bit more of an interesting and varying conversation. I think you can also have nuance here. You can say that last night you saw some of the real limitations that exist, perhaps with this offense. And, I don't know what the ceiling per se, but you certainly saw a dimension to this offense that you haven't. Look, if Jordan is running and Jordan is playing with the attitude that you saw him play in the last 20 minutes, then this offense can be very, very special. And this offense can maybe get away with, like, not being able to just line up and drive people off the ball. Duke has a good defense and a good defensive line, but not, like, inherently special. And I do think that, for me anyways, it was the final piece of the reality puzzle is you're going to be limited in trying to run north and south and stuff like that this year. Okay. You are. You've got guys that are busting their rear end and are playing through, you just got guys showing guts and effort. But the offensive line has certain limitations. Okay, we can acknowledge that, and I think that if you see the Jordan in the final 20 minutes of that game that you do, that that's probably the best masking agent that you have for those limitations. And maybe it was just because it was a night game, and there were elements of that fourth quarter performance from Jordan in particular that it felt like the guy that I saw play against Florida last year. The guy was great in space for other players, with stringing along plays, with decisively deciding to tuck it and run. And you don't have to be like a football savant or anything to understand what it means when a quarterback runs the ball. I'm certainly not a football savant. I understand what it means to a defense from a numbers perspective, and how it impacts, how they have to play, some of the things that they have to respect. It's also just tiring to, be chasing after a quarterback, and at times can be disheartening too, to stop a guy and then have a quarterback, pick up 13 yards with his feet on third down and extend a drive. But, I think yesterday, and I'll be interested to watch the game again and interested to get Bud's opinion on this, but, yesterday I think can be an acknowledgement of what the offense can do. And speaking of that in a couple of different speaking for that as far as a couple of different outcomes, as far as what your limitations are and perhaps what you can do to mask some of those limitations and play in a manner that is as complementary to the pieces that you have on offense as you can. I don't know anything about injuries. I will be very interested to hear more about Johnny Wilson. Johnny dropped some balls against Southern Miss, all right? And he's had a couple other drops, but past couple of games, Johnny Wilson's been as good as, anything other than maybe the Oklahoma game or something like that. Johnny Wilson's been an incredible part of the offense, and you just can't I don't know too many defenders that are going to be able to stop Johnny. He's 6'7". He's not a lean guy by any means. As far as a small frame, yeah, I'm good on housekeeping. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I guess just when people be podcasting, housekeeping is a coming. So that's funny. Johnny's a special player, okay? And Johnny and Johnny and Keon are two guys that pretty much any defense is going to have a hard time trying to put together a real comprehensive game plan. I will say, and I don't want to get too too over one play, but the third down conversion that Keon picks up is one of the wildest catches I've ever seen. I don't know that Keon sees that ball really at all. He basically catches it with his thigh. And it's also a hell of a throw. I saw some people on social media joke that it went through the same time warp that that crazy Jameis pass did against Louisville in 2014 that seemingly went through, 3 different Louisville defenders' hands or whatever it was. I've gone back and watched it 3 or 4 times. I said the same thing live. I really don't think Keon ever saw the ball. I just think you got a little lucky, and you're dealing with a athlete number 4 that's just a special type of dude. So, you're a little banged up at wide receiver. I'd love to see more. Biscuit's catch early in the game, I see some people commenting about. Absolutely hilarious. Biscuit is a very, very talented basketball player and basically looked like a guy who, started to go with like a behind the back pass, and then realized he didn't have to do it and was just going to pull back. That was an awesome catch, and great to see. Great to see Marquiston Douglas, affectionately known as Biscuit, continue to be a bigger piece of the offense moving forward. So I'm going to go through here. I thought your running backs, I guess I've talked about wide receivers, offensive line, another solid night for your tight ends. Morlock becoming more and more a piece of the offense and the strategy. Jaheim Bell is just a dude. And Jaheim Bell, some people want to act like they're about it, and then some people play football in the manner that Jaheim Bell does. I mean, the way that guy has just got a little extra for you is is the way that, if I was good enough to play college football at a place like Florida State, I would have liked to have had that type of attitude on the field. I love just the little extra that he's got for you when you score, whether it be him carrying in the ball or him giving a little extra on a block to somebody. So, and Hakeem Williams is just continuing to emerge. And I'm not trying to slight him when I talked about that kickoff return. I just don't think, Deuce knew he was going to score. Deuce downshifted to about third gear as soon as he was on about the 35, it looked like to me. But Hakeem picks up a massive, if I remember correctly, Hakeem picks up a massive third down conversion. Hakeem is getting plays in the most important aspects of the game. And I think you got to be really, really happy about where you are with number 8 and the development that you're getting from him. I want to thank our friends at For the Table Restaurant Group. Haven't had a chance to get over to Charlie Park yet, but I certainly will before I leave. Got back to the hotel last night late, went over to Madso for a nightcap for a single drink to see some friends. And there's no better place than Madison Social out there. It's just kind of the quintessential experience of being a Florida State supporter, to go to a place like that, be able to look at the stadium, have a cocktail, toast to being 7-0, Madso Township, Charlie Park, all the things that For the Table put their name on. Great, just great people. Love Florida State athletics, and pretty darn good at the hospitality game. So big tip of the hat to Matt Thompson and his team. It is really hard to do a show and look at the comments when you're the only person. So I've missed almost every comment. I'm going to try to dedicate the next 5 to 10 minutes to just starting at the top and working way down. If there's anything that you guys want to throw out there, feel free to do so, and I'll try to get to them as much as I can. Also want to encourage you guys to support the Battles In if you have an interest in such a thing. If you look at social media, whether mine or the Battles In Twitter account, other things that we have out there, we've got a $70 one-time give if you want to do that in reflection of Florida State moving to 7-0. I don't ever want the Nolecast to be like me just staying in y'all's ears about the Battles In, but can't tell you how critical it is to Florida State meeting the criteria for competitiveness. And thebattlesin.com is the website. And if you're somebody that cares enough about Florida State athletics and has the emotional investment that you do to be 25 minutes into a podcast or YouTube, I would, ask that you give us serious consideration. And I can only tell you that it is wildly important. So with that, let's get to questions. Okay. I have a lot of talk about a Discord channel. Don't know that is in the works for the Nolecast, as honestly we're at about our bandwidth as we are right now, doing a podcast alone between the two of us. Okay. Anybody notice if Jared Verse played? Didn't notice him once. Yeah, I don't. Of course, he played. Hell of a player. Florida State's fortunate to have him. Chase the quarterback out of the pocket routinely. Somebody asked why it took my mom so long to come back to campus. Yeah, I don't know. I think my mom just busy lady, and honestly, all my friends. I was talking. My mom came back with me. Had a great time with her. I think it's the first time she's been back to campus. She graduated. Maybe this won't surprise y'all, but I basically made all my friends in middle school and high school Florida State fans. And for whatever reason, whenever I came down to Tallahassee, I came down with one of them. And also my best friend growing up, his family was from Tallahassee. So I was frequently down here with him. But it was great to have my mom around this weekend. And very special weekend for me. Yeah, a lot of talk about the holding. I mean, yeah, I guess there were a lot of early calls that I thought went against Florida State. On the whole, I don't know that the officiating was all that lopsided. It was just ACC refs being ACC refs. But some of the early holds, wild. Like I said, Fisk got held multiple times after just throwing a defender out of his way, which really frustrating because look, if you're locked in and engaged with a guy, it's hard to get called for holding. Most of the time you have to create space. Like if you're a defender, your jersey needs to be seen by the official to have an appreciation for holding. And that was happening, and you still weren't getting the calls. So that's tough. But Fisk plays his rear off. Deloach was held on the first long run rather clearly. Yeah. So it was frustrating early, but on the whole, I didn't leave the stadium thinking that the officials were like wildly lopsided. I just left the stadium thinking that the officials were, as we've come to expect. Couple of recruiting questions. I just, unfortunately, with my role with the Battles End, it's not a good idea for me to talk about recruits. It could just be misconstrued. It could be, one way or another. It's just not something I'm going to be able to do on this platform. And that's that. A lot of talk about Adam Fuller and the adjustments that he's made. Yeah, no, I mean, the adjustments that he's made, but really Duke came out with a plan. Duke had a couple opportunities early that they converted on. And if you want to be frustrated by the fact that it does look like, a lot of people's original possessions are successful, then yeah, that's fine. But, when you give up 10 or 13 to a team, it's going to be hard to come in here and just dog the defensive coordinator. If there's some game later in the season where there's some absolutely, egregious examples of, lack of being able to adjust or being out schemed, then that's one thing. But I'm not going to be real critical of Adam Fuller after last night or after how his team's played over the last couple of weeks and for the majority of the season. Sorry for the podcast crowd. I know this, or it's not like me scrolling through comments is real awesome for the YouTube crowd either, but just hard to do both. A question about Julian Armella getting some playing time. Yeah, I mean, Julian is certainly highly regarded, and there are moments, just like I've seen at practice, that Julian looks like he can be a first-round pick, and then there's moments where you realize he's not quite ready to be out there. There's a lot of variance, is what I'm trying to say. I think with more consistency, you'll see Julian. But like moments last week where Hakeem scores and you see Julian give that effort that he does downfield, that's how you get on the field. And, Julian's engaged on the sidelines. My interactions with him is that he's, I think he loves to play football. And I think he's, if you're a defensive lineman, you may not love going against Julian in practice, but, Julian's a good teammate. And I think if he continues to develop the way that he does, that you'll see more and more playing time for Julian. The real opportunities for playing time, I think, are on the interior. Bless is a really good pass protecting tackle, and Julian's time will come, and Julian's going to be a very good player in time. I absolutely believe that. Let's see. Fisk reminds me of Bjorn Warner. I mean, is it because he's a white guy on the defensive line, or what exactly? Certainly, both have high motors if that's what you want to use. But Bjorn was a little bit of a different player. Fisk is just so not that Bjorn wasn't, but Fisk is just so strong and powerful that yeah, that's a dude, man. It was a good ID by the staff and a great get in the portal to go out and get that kid because that is an absolute difference maker. And look, man, if I would be concerned with teams if Florida State were to win out, enter the playoffs, and be relatively healthy. Because if you've got this existing defensive line with Fisk, Farmer, and Fabo starting to emerge, and then you want to sprinkle a little Daryl Jackson into the mix, going to be a problem for people up front. So that would be something to watch for. But you got some great pieces on the defensive line and on the interior, absolutely. Yep, some more talk about Fisk in the comments here. So talk about Chris Fowler. I actually saw him at the hotel. Not somebody that I didn't talk to Chris Fowler, but not somebody that I would label as particularly approachable. I think he's he just does his own thing. And if he was calling Jordan JT Daniels or whatever else, then that's funny, as some commenters have chosen. Nathan Hornblower talks a little bit about the rotation of running backs and whether or not maybe you would ever try to find a position where you could work Benson in as a complementary back, as that might help him. Yeah, look, I've talked about this before that I just, Benson looks like somebody that needs to work his way into a game a little bit. I also think Benson is a guy that carries the ball the most. So my point is trying to get here is that he's your number one carrier, and he seems to be the one guy who carries the ball in what I would call the most predictable of situations. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast, this is just not an offensive line group right now, as it's put together, both from a player perspective and injury perspective, that you're going to be able to just line up and blow people off the ball in predictive run situations and stuff like that. So I do think that Rodney Hill is a guy that Nathan suggests, and Rodney runs super hard and is a really good player. Toafili continues to be a dynamic piece, but Keziah Holmes is playing at a really high level, and it's great to see that guy go out there and continue to earn more and more snaps. And it's a little confusing when you're at the game to try to figure out whether or not it was 26 or 29 who was carrying the ball. But Keziah Holmes is a really good player who continues to work real hard and continues to, just kind of the way he's playing, you've got to work him into the rotation as well. Some more talks about the tight ends, and yeah, they were incorporated more. Morlock has the one play called back where he steps out of bounds, but it was, a situation like that, you acknowledge the play made, and you acknowledge that Jordan went to him, basically like in a fantasy situation. What I'm trying to, I label that a target. I label that as quarterback feeling comfortable throwing the ball to the guy. Kid makes a catch. Obviously it didn't count, but that's, I think, indicative of you getting more and more comfortable with Kyle Morlock. Jaheim Bell, I talked about him. He's just a dude. And, you're really good at tight end. And then you got, Biscuit out there blocking people and, making catches behind his back and other things like that. So great group there. A couple people at the Battles in tailgate yesterday. Justin, it was great to meet you as well, man. Thank you. Great to get a chance to talk to you some before the game. or our friend Nathan also talked about the fact that Jordan was running around and it kind of felt like a situation of, quote, in case of emergency, break glass thing. Yeah, I mean, it did a little bit there. I also just think there were some opportunities that presented himself. And once, Jordan carried the ball once or twice, it just seemed to be just seemed to click there, for lack of better words. I know that's not really, dynamic sports observations, but Jordan felt comfortable. Maybe it was because he felt that he had to do it. Maybe it was because, he saw a lot of what he's worked for, a lot of what his teammates have worked for, potentially, being on the brink there with a loss to Duke. I don't know. What I know is I watched the guy be the best player on the field for the last 20 minutes of the game, and that was what Jordan was frequently last year, and that was great to see. Okay, here's a really interesting comment. I had some conversations with this Mr. Neely. I'm not going to pronounce your first name. I think I'll mispronounce it. I apologize, but this is an interesting subject matter, and I'd like to talk to Bud about this as well. He writes, interested on the rewatch if you notice if we are tipping our running plays. Couple of stretch plays, the defensive line for Duke ran straight to the side of the ball before the ball was ever handed off. So, yeah, this is a conversation. I'm going to put a metaphorical pin in, and we are going to come back to that. I want to go back and watch the tape at a little bit more of a granular level. I'll also say that that last week there was the ACC broadcast, or the ABC, and then there was what was it, ESPN? It wasn't the ACC network, but it was I don't know, whatever network it was, doesn't matter what network it was on. But you had the game, and then you had not a perfect version of an all 22, but a pretty good one. And there were a couple plays on that I watched that I wondered if we don't have some tips in what we're doing from a run game perspective as well. So what I will say is that, Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins, and trust me, y'all, Florida State is fairly well staffed, and they've got a lot of offensive brains. If that's there, it'll be found in self-scouting. But it is a subject matter, Mr. Neely, that I've talked a little bit of, and have had one or two things that I've watched that have kind of caught my eye that made me wonder if that wasn't the case. A little bit of talk about Mike's decisions to go for it on third down. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just who Mike is. Mike Norvell is a super dynamic head coach and does a lot of things incredibly well. And if you disagree with his fourth down decisions, I understand it. You can have that opinion, but I think that's just who he is. That's the way he's going to play. And if you want to be critical of going for it when you're, down and you're, on your own 36 or whatever, then I get it. But I'll also say, and I'm not trying to carry water for Mike Norvell, nor does he need me to, but the sport is going more and more towards a sport where you got to maximize your possessions. And I don't have a problem with a coach going for it on fourth. Now, look, if it's 4th and 11 and you go for it and you're on your 29 or something, then yeah, you're being silly. But I don't have a whole lot of problem with what transpired last night from a fourth down perspective. Yeah, Duke getting pressure rushing 3 was a little frustrating. Nathan says he's going to call the Hotel Indigo and send housekeeping back up here. That's very funny and would be totally appreciated, I can assure you, sir. Let's see. A little bit of talk about the catch from Keon that I was referencing there. And yeah, no, the Keon Coleman. If you were in the crowd last night, the chance of Keon Coleman, that was started. Sure seemed like it emanated from the student section. Yeah, that was cool. I've got to say, look, like I opened in the first 90 seconds of the podcast, the crowd was incredible last night. It was, the term electric environment gets overused, but it was awesome, awesome environment, special night, and that literally reminded me of being 12 or 13 years old. And I mean, the last guy to my knowledge that the fan base did that for was Peter Warwick, and that's pretty interesting. And Keon is a special type of dude, and also a hilarious individual. Um, yeah, questions about the thoughts of the OL. I mean, I'll wait for official. I just think Rob Scott, somebody you're gonna have to continue to mention or kind of manage, but that looks like it's headed in the right direction. We'll see on everybody else. Uh, yeah, there's just some chatters that are just hilarious here. All right, yeah, some lot of talk about Keziah Holmes. Absolutely is just making a case for himself as to why he's got to continually be part of what the offense is. And man, that's good for that kid. There's a lot of running backs on that team that are really good players, and he's done nothing but just work his rear end off. And is a guy that's got to be part of the rotation at this point. So uh, there are legitimately like 6 comments about the housekeeping that have made me crack up in reviewing this. Y'all are very, very funny, and that was uh, that was a funny little interchange there. So um, I think that is about it. Yeah, if you are watching this and could give us a like button or whatever else would be greatly appreciated. Clemson Miami game, I'd be interested in knowing kind of just what y'all's thoughts were on that. I was I'm always going to root for Miami to lose, uh, but Clemson losing in the manner that they did, I mean, I would have preferred for Miami to lose. Let me restate that. That's absolutely the case. But oh man, that is kind of going in the direction that maybe a lot of us thought it might be coming into this year. So Clemson will be one to keep an eye on, man. They a lot of those kids still try really hard and work hard, but some of some of the in game decision making there is remarkable. And when you got Dabo and Cristobal dueling as in-game coaches, it's quite the duo to watch. So um, we're 42 minutes into a solo podcast that probably hasn't been all that great based off some of the dead spaces in trying to catch up with chat and acknowledge some of the really good questions and things that were thrown out there. So I think I will wrap up here. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Apologize that this is a little bit later on some of the, not an instant reaction, but great to be able to respond to what I saw last night, be able to interact with some of y'all. And it was great to be able to catch up with many of you guys in person as well. So I think Bud and I will be back recording tomorrow night, and we'll give it another rewatch and have a little bit more of a in-depth look, and Bud will go over the prize picks. He's honestly having to carry the torch when it comes to that one this year. I've got I'm just, yeah, tough for me to be as informed as I was last year on that. So thank you, sponsors. I went over the legendary team, the great people of Congruity, Madison Social. I've got a couple bottles of Louisiana hot sauce somewhere around here. Had them at the tailgate yesterday. Y'all, love you. This has been brilliant as always. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Gold Knowles, 7-0. What's up? We're good at football again. Cheers.